Did you get a chance to meet Miss Kaylee Jewert? She was the 13-year-old speaker that was up on stage.
So my daughter made fast friends with her.
Oh, good. We made fast friends with her. Kaylee is gem. She's amazing. Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Chicks in Charge Automotive Edition. My name is Jess.
I'm Shasta.
This is Shasta. And today we have a very special guest for you. His name is Justin Atherton from TEDx of Southlake, and we are super excited to chat with him today. He's the founder of the Confidence Unchained, and we are super excited to bring him on board with us today. Hey, Justin, how are you doing?
Good, ladies. How are you?
We are doing great, and we are so excited to chat with you a little bit today. You know, as we mentioned previously, Shasta and I both come from a little bit of a law enforcement background, so having you on the show is really exciting for us. My father is actually in law enforcement, and Shasta's husband is a LEO in the town over from us as well.
Outstanding. Well, I'm glad to be here.
Well, thank you.
So our listeners are used to hearing from automotive guests. And so the cool thing about us getting to interview a lot of the speakers that spoke with you at this TEDx event is that we're getting to branch out a little bit and speak with people who don't come from an automotive background. So fill in our listeners about you, what your background is. You have crazy, wild, full background in law enforcement. But tell us and our listeners a little bit about you.
Sure. Yeah, I've done all the cool guy stuff, right? Yeah, I've been in law enforcement for about 18 years. I was on the SWAT team. I was a detective. I've been a supervisor in several different aspects, running different training divisions, and still involved in law enforcement, even though my wife would like me to step away at this point. You know, I still teach defensive tactics, and I'll show up hurt, and she's not a fan of that. But you know, I'm looking forward to transitioning out of law enforcement, but still wanting to be connected. I still teach classes to law enforcement on leadership and interview training, and I will continue doing that as well. But it's been a long career. It's been interesting. You know, there's been ups and downs along the way, and but all of that has led me to where I'm at right now with my business and doing speaking and different coaching. So I'm thankful for it all.
So your tagline is your go-to mentor for navigating high-stress corporate careers.
Yes, ma'am.
How did you decide that was the path that you wanted to take?
Well, it's been an interesting progression, but I think the main thing that led me to that was realizing how the majority of people get super stressed out or have difficulty handling most situations. And my experience on the SWAT team, being supervisor during major events happening with the police department, these everyday stressors that most companies and corporations deal with seem kind of minuscule based on the things I've dealt with. And so I saw a need for helping people manage these high stress situations and be able to communicate with your teams in an effective way when you have these stressful situations come up. And you have to be able to, you know, shift your leadership skills in those moments. And you have to be able to speak with clear and concise language in order to help your team navigate through this difficult time.
And what part of the country are you in?
Right now I'm in Dallas, Texas.
Okay. Is that where you've done most of your law enforcement career?
Yes. Yeah. Half up here in Dallas and half down in Houston.
Okay. Interesting. I always wonder how it's different in different parts of the country. You know, when you say big events, when you've had to go through big events, I feel like different parts of the country see big events. Like, you know, we're in Joplin, Missouri, where our biggest event was a big tornado, and then you've got areas like New York that could see different level events as opposed to rural Oklahoma. So,
sure.
I think in Dallas and Houston, you've seen probably some pretty big events.
Yeah, and there are, clearly across the U.S. Different cities that have dealt with much larger events as a whole, than we have. I think as law enforcement goes, we're pretty lucky to be in the state of Texas, where we do have a lot of support from our community.
Yeah.
But we do have different things that happen from time to time, and probably one of the bigger ones we had to deal with, just weather related. Being down in Houston for Hurricane Harvey, seeing how we had to deal with that situation down there, being a part of that response was interesting.
Yeah. Well, and the hard thing, especially with hurricanes, is you never know how big or how little they're going to be, no matter how they forecast them. Like they could forecast them to be Cat 5 Katrina strength, and then a couple of trees go down. Like
Right.
so that they're impossible to forecast for.
So you've been on the SWAT team, and I also think that I read or heard somewhere that you'd also been a part of gang intel as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, when I worked for the prison system here in Texas, I was the supervisor over gang intelligence, for my specific unit.
Wow. So a huge part of your job is knowing how to remain cool, calm, and collected in the heat of the chaos, right? How do you train your body to remain in that state of calmness whenever there's chaos all around you?
That adrenaline just wants to spike.
That's an excellent question. And the short answer is to not resist the emotions that are coming up in your body. So I teach classes on emotional intelligence, and the first thing that we set out there as the foundation of having a good emotional intelligence is having a thorough emotional vocabulary. And so we need to acknowledge the emotions that are coming up physiologically in our body, rather than resisting them, saying, I don't want to be scared, I don't want to be afraid, I don't want to be angry. Because the harder we push against those emotions, the more your body wants you to feel it. It's like, hey, you're not acknowledging that this is happening. So we almost have a more harsh physiological response in our bodies, rather than saying, okay, I am upset, I am worried about this aspect, I need to maintain focus on what I'm doing right now. I will handle that in a moment. So sometimes we do have to be able to set it to the side, but acknowledging those specific emotions that come up is part of the key to not letting it overwhelm you.
I love that. And was that part of your TEDx talk at the event? Because I know that your topic was a suspect within, how to interrogate yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And, without giving it all away, just
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about what that was about.
Yeah, the talk on emotional intelligence would be a whole different conversation. So what I focus on with my TED talk with the suspect within is being able to look at the language that we use to navigate from day to day. So there's a concept called content analysis, which in law enforcement we use to determine the truthfulness and accuracy of written and spoken word. And when we look at specific language, change in pronouns, or verbal cues, we can see that there is, some potential deception in someone's statement. Well, I accidentally found out that I could use this tool on myself. I was actually on a trip down to Houston, Texas, and I parked my truck with the valet. And at the end of the weekend, when I got my truck back, I noticed it had been keyed from nose to tail on the passenger side.
Good Lord.
And clearly I wasn't happy. And I had to write a statement for the insurance company. And I'm writing a statement saying, I drove my truck to Houston. I gave my truck to the valet. At the end of the weekend, when I got my truck back, I noticed the truck was damaged. And I stopped writing. And so within content analysis, a change in pronouns, if something changes from my to the, that's distancing language, right? And I saw it happen in real time. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, I know about this topic. I've taught people about this topic. I've trained on it, taught others how to use it. And it still came out of me in real time. I actually I have chills right now thinking about that moment with that realization. And that's when I started looking at, can I use this tool on myself to audit my language, to notice when I'm lying? Because I've been so used to paying attention when other people lie, right? I turned it on myself and was able to narrow down different categories of words that are more useful when interrogating yourself. And so it's been an interesting journey, turning that inward and now sharing it with others, saying, hey, you can figure out when you are lying to yourself as well.
Wow. So how has TEDx helped you? Because whenever you sign up to go along with TEDx, you also get coaching and mentors, correct?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that process and how TEDx has helped you? And for somebody that already preaches confidence, I can't imagine that confidence is something that you need on stage. But tell us how you have benefited from the TEDx coaches.
So it was a great process to go through. And I talked about this with my coach, Troy, because I've been teaching in front of groups of people for years. But this format's a little bit different. Most of the trainings I give are pretty interactive. Like I may be in a class in front of 30, 40 people, and we're having a conversation back and forth. I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? We have a conversation. So the TED stage is just you standing up there talking at people for 15 minutes. There's not a lot of feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite things and things I talked about with my coach, Troy, was I don't normally get a lot of constructive feedback on how I present.
Mm-hmm.
It's normally like, hey, this topic was great. You did a good job presenting it. And it's like, cool, thanks.
Right.
But all the intricacies that go into a TED Talk, your hand placement, your hand movements, moving around the stage, because you have this red dot that you need to stay within. So when I'm normally training, I wander around quite a bit. I'll walk down the aisles. I don't normally use a mic. I move around a lot, paying attention to the class and trying to include everyone. So this was a very different process. And so it gave me some different insight on, being like a keynote speaker or giving a different type of talk. And so it's just another tool to put in my tool belt now.
Right. Were you able to sit in on the other sessions as well?
Yes, there were some really good speakers. There were some very emotional talks that were given at the event, some very informative talks. I did miss some of them coming in and out for my own. My daughter said her favorite talk was a comedian. I think he spoke right before me. She's like, I couldn't say that yours is my favorite talk. So, but his was probably my favorite.
Did you get a chance to meet Miss Kaylee Jewart? She was the 13-year-old speaker that was up on stage.
So my daughter made fast friends with her.
Oh, good. We made fast friends with her. Kaylee is gem. She's amazing.
Yeah, I think my daughter was running around with her backstage at one point because my daughter's 13 as well, and so she watched her talk, and then my daughter started getting ideas about writing her own TED Talk after the event.
That's amazing.
So yes, it was, and we all went out to dinner afterwards, or a big portion of us did go out to dinner afterwards. So it was good to meet everybody and a lot of great speakers.
So who was your favorite speaker that you got to see aside from yourself?
Oh, what was the gentleman's name? He gave a very powerful talk about addiction, and it was a very powerful talk. I think he moved most of the audience to tears.
Wow.
And just sharing his story about addiction and just how normally we put those people in a category like, oh, they're over there. That's the riffraff, the people we don't want to deal with, and how the community that he was in, that the group of men that he was involved with ended up becoming like a staple of the community and being involved on very significant levels. And so I think his was probably the most significant talk that I saw.
That's amazing. I can't wait to hear it myself.
I know. I want to get my hand on all these recordings from the event, because we're hearing that they're pretty good. But from what I've heard, nobody's gotten theirs yet. So we're like, come on. No.
Yeah, we're excited for them.
Eagerly waiting.
So Justin, I know that you are a dad. And so I know all of this great stuff that you're doing with SWAT, with law enforcement. with the TEDx. None of that can compare to being a parent. So tell us a little bit about you in your personal life, being a dad. What do you guys do for fun? What do you do with your kids? Things like that.
So I spend all the time I can with my daughter. We go to dinner every Thursday. We play a lot of games. I take a lot of opportunities to pass on, nuggets of knowledge, right? I have a lot of what I call uncomfortable conversations with my daughter, and she currently is not a fan, but I've made a promise to her. I said, look, we're going to have more uncomfortable conversations as you grow up, right? I I think it's important to take those moments to help her learn and think through different processes. I joke about it. I teach her all of the same skills that I teach in law enforcement: reading body language, facial expressions, understanding how people lie. And I joke about it, but I say her future boyfriends don't stand a chance.
No, they don't.
And that's not from me, because I know I'm not always going to be there. Yes, I'm not always going to be there. So I'm trying to train her up to be, a little badass herself, so she can weed through all the BS and figure out, making the good decisions and who to exclude from your life and who is a good choice. Because I don't see a difference between leadership and parenting.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the skill sets are the same. It's that same communication, asking good questions, building rapport. And so I practice those same leadership skills with her and helping her learn and grow and, train her up to be the best person that she can be.
I love that, because as you being in law enforcement, you have seen a lot. You have seen the unthinkable of things that actually happen in the real world. And it's so important for us to prepare our children, boys or girls, for what the real world really is. And unfortunately, it's not all rainbows and unicorns as they might think right now at 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. There's a lot out there. There's a lot of bad out there, and they have to be aware of it. And without our leadership and really, really honing in on right and wrong and teaching them how to pick up on those social cues, there's really no hope, because I don't see this world getting any better as we go.
Yeah. It's very important for our kids to understand, like you said, it's definitely not all rainbows and unicorns, and being able to weed that out yourself, make good decisions. A conversation I've had to have with her time and time again is that no one out there in the real world really cares about your feelings.
Right.
And so you can't just navigate saying, oh, you hurt my feelings. And you have to deal with it sometimes. Right.
Yeah.
And teaching her these different skills, like when she's faced with a difficult situation, like, focus on what you can control, or can you remove yourself from the situation, or do you have to just accept it and move forward?
Yep.
So it's a constant thing.
With your daughter being 13 years old, she's at that very influential age right now where it's pivotal. It's pivotal to teach her right and wrong and how to navigate life, not using your feelings and emotions to do so.
Yeah. It's a daily thing to, train her how to think for herself, because I think that's a shortfall. And rather than parents just saying, do this, don't do that. And then when they get out in the real world and there's no one over their shoulder telling them what to do and what not to do, hey, we need to train our kids how to make decisions, how to think through something. It's like, well, I don't know what to do. Well, give me your options. Well, we could do this or this. Okay. Which one do you think is a better choice? Well, this one. And maybe we give some guidance. Okay, well, maybe we should choose option B instead because of X, Y, Z. And we're training them to think through that process to make those good decisions and go, oh, okay. Rather than just thinking short term, what are the long-term repercussions of these decisions that I make?
Yeah. And when you're training your kids in that way, are you training them on real life situations that are happening right then, or are you creating situations and training them that way?
Most of the time I take an opportunity on what's happening in the moment to think through a situation. I'm like, light bulb. Okay. Now is an opportunity to coach her through this moment, because maybe this is something we don't want to deal with. I think the first one I remember, we were heading to a friend's house and for game night, and we're stuck in traffic. We're going to be late. And she's in the backseat. She's freaking out. She's like, Daddy, we're going to be late. And she's like stressing out. And I'm like, you're right. And I was like, this is a great moment to talk her through something. I'm like, well, okay, what are our options? What can we control about this situation? Well, maybe we can like go another way and this. And I was like, well, I did. I tried to get around the traffic, but GPS, we're stuck on southbound 45 heading into Houston. This is our only way. We're going to be late. And then I asked her, do you want to turn around and go back home, or do you want to continue, on to game night? She's like, well, no, I want to, continue on and to play for game night. Okay. Well, if we're choosing to stay in this bad situation where we're stuck in traffic, we have to accept it as reality. And I think, and this is something I've explained to her multiple times, but I think adults get this wrong too. Just because we accept something as reality doesn't mean we have to approve or condone of it.
Yeah.
Because we may be in a situation that we don't approve of. I don't approve of sitting in traffic for 45 minutes, but I have to accept it, that's the reality of the situation, right? And then once you get to that level, well, okay, I can't control anything. I'm choosing not to remove myself from the situation. I have to accept it. Then you just move on. And we sang songs, we told jokes in traffic all the way down there. So rather than being mad and anxious that we're going to be late, it's like, hey, yeah, we're going to be late. Let's make the best of it. And we had a great time stuck in traffic on the way to game night.
And you just got an extra 45 minutes of bonding time with your daughter.
Exactly.
It all worked out, didn't it? That's awesome. Well, I love that, Justin, and I really appreciate you coming on here to tell your story with us. This has been fun. Do you have anything else for him?
No, I would love for anybody who's listening to be able to connect with you and see if they could use your consulting for their business. Absolutely. What's the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, my website is justinwatherton.com. I'm also on all of the social medias. LinkedIn is probably the one I use the most for most of my clients, but I'm also on Instagram and Facebook, and reluctantly just started a TikTok as well. So on all of those, platforms, but probably LinkedIn or reaching out on my website is the best way to get in contact with me.
Awesome. Well, speaking of that, and knowing that we do have a lot of automotive professionals that follow us and listen in, have you done any sales training in the past?
Sales training is no.
I can imagine that confidence in sales goes hand in hand with that mindset, is why I'm asking.
Sure. Most of it is focused on the communication aspect, either leadership focused, not necessarily sales, although what I've seen is the marketing aspect does come into it quite a bit because of having the direct communication and telling your clients that you will do something rather than saying I'll try to do something. And so it shows up more in the marketing aspect, I would say, rather than the sales specifically.
Maybe even internal.
Right.
Internal, definitely. Leaders, I talk about how important it is to be truthful with your teams. And when your leader is saying, well, we'll try to do this, or we'll look into that, it's an implied level of failure. Mm-hmm. And your team can sense that. Well, you're going to try to do this. Well, I mean, that doesn't mean the same as I will, or I am going to. And so it's very important as a leader to speak very clearly and use the precise language with your teams.
For sure.
All right, Justin, thank you so much for your time today. We really do appreciate the time that you took to sit down with us and chat with us. In a world where you can be anything, be kind, because you never know what battles others are facing. So when we go out into the world this week, remember to light it up. I'm Jess.
I'm Shasta.
And that's Justin. We've been the Chicks in Charge. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Yay, you've made it this far. And if you want to help the chicks out and add some value, make sure you subscribe right now.
Click that little red button down below. Do it. Do it now.